For the coffee treat. For the ones that don't drink coffee, we can have the option of, let's see, if maybe a juice, or let's see what we can have. And also there's a treat there. There's cake, orange cake, usually that's what they put. After that, you're going to have free time in Plaka in the old town before we go and we meet all together and we do the Acropolis.
Driving around Athens. First day. I don't know, the buildings are kind of old. I guess graffiti here is very common because the government don't really have strict regulations, so they just write everywhere. A lot of apartments. Traffic already starting.
Comfortable, nice place, location, because it's in the center of Athens. You can do almost everything by walking, almost everything. It's not that far away, to be honest. And one of the landmarks you need to find, you can have in your mind, is this square on your left hand side with a big fountain. Just 7 minutes walking from our hotel. It's called Omonia Square or Concord Square, and that's the square in Athens that had changed the most. The old square had a bigger fountain and all the cars were driving around. Later the fountain was gone and they replaced it with 7 big statues. Then the statues were gone, and later it became only a concrete square, nothing else, nothing impressive. This form that it doesn't look like a square, I mean that cars do not drive all around. It is pretty recent, the past 15 years, because the architect had the idea to make it like the sun and the rays, because according to some people this is our 0 point from where we measure all the distances degrees. And now this fountain that you saw with the grass, it's since 2021. Now how it's going to change in 10 years, don't ask me, I don't know. Maybe you should email me and ask me, Mariana, has it changed or not yet, this square? So police hunts us down. Fines, giving us fines anyway. So the thing is that while they were taking us, this is taking you to the stadium, at one point it ends up to an archaeological site. Where is the Temple of Zeus? We're going to see it, we're going to pass by. And then they changed it a little bit. I mean, they diverted the street. Even though it was diverted, we still call it Stadium Street, even though it doesn't go straight to the stadium. But in theory, yes, it goes over there. The problem was the archaeological site. We cannot pull it down. In a minute, on our right hand side, we're going to see one of the important buildings of Greece, and that was the old parliament. From 1834, when Athens became the capital of Greece, until 1935, this building on your right hand side was the parliament. That's why we call it the old parliament. It has been moved to the location where is now the new parliament, and this one now is used as an archive, as a museum of our recent history. And when we talk about recent history in Greece, that means the history of this country after the 15th century. It's pretty recent. It's not ancient, it's not, let's call it medieval, which is not correct with the word I'm using now, but it was the more closer to our modern times history. In a minute, on our left hand side, we're going to see another central square of Athens called Syntagma Square. Syntagma means constitution. It took this weird name after a revolution the Greeks had against the absolute monarchy of the first king of the country, Otho. So in a minute you're going to see it after the traffic light. You're going to have it on your left hand side. But I have more time to tell you the story. So Otho was ruling without laws, without the people didn't have many rights, so they came here in front of his palace then, and they protested for 8 months. It was a bloodless, in a way, revolution against Otho. A revolution, Otto had to give them the first constitution of Greece. That's why the square right in front of now the parliament is called Syntagma Square, which means Constitution Square. Bless you. Now the thing is that if you ask any Greek, where's the Constitution Square? Yeah, probably it's going to look at you with this look on the face. There is no Constitution Square. It's not that we don't speak English, it's the fact that we haven't realized that syntagma means in English Constitution. So on your left, Constitution Square or Syntagma Square, and at the back, the big building is the Parliament.
Oh.
Now the Parliament.
Now the
In
Parliament.
the beginning,
That's the
it
Parliament.
was the Palace of the King.
Oh. Before it was the Palace of the King.
In a
So
minute, on our
awesome.
left-hand side, after the second traffic light, we're going to see one of the oldest churches in Athens. It was built in the 11th century. That means 100 years ago. It was badly damaged because of an earthquake in the 17th century, and it was bought by the Russian Tsar Nicholas I in the 19th century for the Russian community, which wasn't still very big here. So on your
Here's
left,
the church.
that's this church I was telling you about. And if you ask anything who's not a guide, who's not historian archaeologist about the initial name of this church, nobody remembers it because we just call it the Russian church. So simple. Don't expect something, impressive like
It's a small church.
something very deep as a meaning. And on our left hand, true. And on our left hand side, we see another church of the 19th century. That's the Anglicanic Church of St. Paul, built by a British architect called Cockerell, but he died before he finished it. So it was changed, the initial plan, by one of the Danish brothers and architects that work here and built some other buildings we're going to see during our driving. And that's why, okay, it's not exactly as it was planned at the beginning, designed at the beginning. Orthodox, okay? Christian Orthodox. The 99% of the churches you see all around Greece, they're Orthodox churches. The ones usually we point out in Athens during our driving tour, these are the exception of the rule. So you know which are the exception, and then you go, okay, that's an Orthodox church, so we move on. Simpler things. Well, on our left-hand side we have the tram. Which, by the way, this was the latest means of transportation we have in Athens. We have it since 2004, and it was built for the Olympics of 2004. And on our left-hand side still we have the Temple of Zeus.
Oh, this Temple of Zeus.
And right next to the Temple of Zeus, much better seen, is the Arch of Hadrian. This arch was built to honor Hadrian, a Roman emperor who lived 1800 years ago. He was a benefactor for Athens, and the Athenians wanted to, as I told you, to thank him for what he had done to the city. To have a Roman emperor visiting a small, let's call it, university town, it was something big, and that's why this beautiful arch, which has nothing to do with the gates of Athens, it was only for designing it. For honoring this emperor, like the triumphal arches we see everywhere. And in a minute you're going to have an extra excellent view of the temple and the Acropolis when you go up. So 4th century AD, the Greeks became Christians, which means either they abandoned the temples, like this case, Temple of Zeus on your left, or they converted the temples into churches. So when it collapsed because of the time, the locals used the material of the Temple of Zeus for other structures like houses, roads, paths. That's why only 15 remaining columns. The other thing they stopped doing is organizing events for the gods, because the ancient Greeks organized everything to honor their gods. The most famous of these games were the ancient Olympics. We're going to Olympia, we're going to talk about the ancient Olympics, but I can tell you that from now, they were held for Zeus. Olympia, by the way, it's 4.5 hours away from Athens in the southwest. So what happens there? Okay, I take that as a no or stop talking, I'm not sure yet. Okay, I take that as a no, much better than stop talking. Now, I need to take you back to 490 BC, that means 2,500 years ago, when Athens together with another city-state, because in the ancient times there was no country called Greece, but there were independent cities with their own currency, political system and laws, that's why we call them city-states, had to face the superpower of that period of time, which was the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire is what we call today Iran. It was actually a little bit also with parts of Iraq. Don't see the borders today, they were completely different. It had conquered the Middle East countries that didn't exist as Middle East countries then, Asia Minor, the coastline of modern Turkey, there was no Turkey then, and it wanted to expand the borders for the West. The first enemies it had to face were the ancient Greek city-states, as I told you. Some of them fought back, some others, of course, surrendered because they saw the huge Persian army and fleet coming. We have two different attacks under two different emperors, and there's a break in between of these attacks of 10 years. So during the first attack, 490 BC, under Darius the Great, we have the Battle of Marathon. The Battle of Marathon takes place 42 kilometers in the north of Athens, which means in a way straight ahead where we are. And even though the Athenians were outnumbered, they managed to defeat the Persians. One soldier had to run from Marathon to Athens to bring the victorious message. He was not only a soldier, he was also the messenger. That his name, Phidippides or Pheidippides. He ran after fighting a couple of hours there, 42 kilometers, which is quite long distance, in full armor, which means then 30 kilos on him. And when he arrived in Athens, it was late August or early September, and September can be that hot as August. So when he arrived in Athens, he said one word in Greek, which was Nenikikamen, and means we have won, and then he died because of exhaustion. Because of the story I told you, the people who reorganized the Olympic Games of 1896 created for the first time the marathon race. So the first marathon race took place and the first modern Olympic Games of 1896. It didn't exist in the ancient times. After that, also the marathon race became independent as a race. I mean, not part of the Olympics. And we have it all over the world. Here in Athens, we have the classical or the authentic marathon, as we call it. And we have two changes. Okay, the athletes start from marathon. You know, now you realize that it exists as a village. They follow pretty much this path this guy took 25 centuries ago. Two things have changed. The finishing line, that's the stadium where we stopped a little bit to take pictures, and not the assembly, the ancient assembly of Athens. Plus, we have as well the, because, okay, a third change can be not in armor, under armor maybe, but if we don't want dead athletes, that's why we don't organize it in late August or early September. We organize it on the second weekend of November. Much better the weather, more pleasant. In front of there is, that's almost 11 o'clock. You see 11 o'clock, you see a pink building. Right in front of the pink building, there is a green glass statue, but we call it the runner. Now that we make the turn to the right, you're going to see it better. So this is the only one that participates in every single marathon race. That's a modern statue, of course, we understand it. The man who did it is a Greek sculptor with the name Varoutsos, and we have his works, many of his works here in Greece, but also you can find them in northern Italy and Switzerland. This one, I like the story of this statue. You see, this one was at the square where was the fountain. You remember the first square we saw when we left the hotel? But because it's too crowded, too many cars, too many exhaust from the cars, noise, okay? And they decided to move it and bring it here because they were afraid that this glass would break. That's the time also when the Athenians changed its name. The title of this work was The Stranger. And what it means, the stranger? Your neighbor in a big city that you don't know who's the one who lives next to you. The neighbor that you don't know. And the Greeks are the ones who call it the runner. And the sculptor liked it and he kept it. Because this statue shows you the speed of the city, since it's running all the time. Plus, it was placed right at the end of the marathon race. So I think it's a very good idea for both the location and the name at the end.